Welcome to the Mom as Well podcast, where we are digging deep into the gifts and the gaps of foster and adoptive parenting. I'm Tara Hutton, and I'm glad you're here. Mama's Well. Yes, she is. Well, hello. Welcome to Mama's Well, and where, the tagline is we are digging deep into the gifts and the gaps of foster and adoptive parenting. But what I'm discovering is that I'm just digging deep, and it doesn't matter who you're parenting or how long you've been a parent. Our kids have something to show us. They are reflecting. They are always reflecting the gaps, the places that I'm realizing I have to reparent myself. And so if you are a parent or are in any relationships do that. They show us the things that the places that need healing. So that's what we're doing here. We are discovering and digging down into those things so that we can be more present and more available to the people that we love, primarily our children. And today, a big part for me, I'm married to my husband, Kyle, and we've been married 28 years, I believe, around that. And it's been a beautiful journey of lots of ups and downs. And one thing recently, he and I were having sushi by ourselves, which is really a fun treat. And we decided that we would talk about just all the ways that our kids have impacted our parenting and our marriage and what that's been like. And I took some notes down. And so today I have Kyle here with me, and I wanted to share some of those things. And I didn't go over these things with Kyle, so we haven't talked about these things since that day. But Kyle's great. He's great on the fly. So
well, we'll see.
Thanks, Kyle, for taking some time with me. We had a spot today in our studio where we didn't have a guest. And so I've wanted to do this episode for a while. And I think not talking about it beforehand really makes it even more real.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but I did write some notes down from our date.
All right. Well, I will try to answer the questions in a way that don't get me in trouble with you later.
They aren't questions. They aren't questions. We're just having a discussion.
Okay.
We're just sharing. We're just going to get real
right.
about just some of the struggles that you and I have faced around parenting. And I would say in our relationship, that's probably one of the biggest areas that we struggle. If when we struggle, that's one of the things. There's the sex thing. That's always a struggle forever.
For some of us more than others.
Right. There's money. These are just the biggies in marriage, right? Yeah. There's money, there's sex,
sure,
and there's kids.
Family.
Yeah. All kinds of family, right?
Yep.
So that's what I want to talk about today. Yeah. Family.
Cool.
Kiddos.
Well, and I've had the opportunity to be on your podcast a couple of times, but I'll say this to your listeners, since you brought up the topic of being real. I want your listeners to know this. If they have ever felt, number one, if they've been listening for a while, then they've heard your authenticity. And if your authenticity has helped any of your listeners to consider being more open and honest, or with themselves or with somebody around them, I just want to tell them they're in good company, because that's what you've always done for me. So really encouraging me to think about how I feel, look inside. That's been huge for me, and one of the things that you've really helped teach me. So
did you peek at my notes?
No,
because that's on my list.
I didn't. So I know in the face of me doing that spontaneously in front of your audience, I'm just saying that she's always doing this to me.
Yeah, you're blushing.
Which is good.
So let's start there then. Let's start with that. And that is one of the things that as we've, we started parenting 24 years ago.
Right.
When our first son was born. And because you're adopted, that was your first, and you had not met your biological parents at that time, your biological siblings.
Right.
That was the first blood relative that you had ever met and experienced. And that was a really big deal.
Yeah, it was a big deal for me because I think one of the things growing up adopted without contact of any biological kind, I often wondered if that connection was really a thing or not. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, is there really a DNA type connection? And when we had our first son, Brooks, that was my first time to ponder that. You know what I mean? Like, what does the blood thing look like? And there it was.
And
I didn't, because a baby obviously is not interacting, when it's first born. I didn't really have anything to compare it to. You know what I mean? Other than baby pictures, and quite frankly, I'll make all the moms mad and say most of them look just kind of little and pink and shriveled.
And he was very little because he was only 5 pounds when he was born.
Yeah, exactly. And so it wasn't like an immediate, like, wow, there's a piece of me, right? You know it in your head, right?
Yeah.
At least it better have been.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, but at the same time, it was very intriguing to me.
Yeah.
That, hey, here's my very first connection biologically with another person.
So just a tiny piece of trivia this is us getting started in parenting in our marriage, right? That was when Brooks was born. But I remember you and I would talk about names before he was born. We didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. We were letting that be a surprise. And you really loved the name Brooks. And I didn't know anybody named Brooks, and I think you liked the name because you knew somebody in high school that was named Brooks. But just a tiny little, the world is just so, it's amazing how we are so connected. But what we found out years later is that your oldest, is she the oldest biological? Yeah, your oldest biological sister on your mother's side named her firstborn son Brooks as well, and he was born exactly 10 years, same month as our son, 10 years earlier. Yeah, I thought that was fascinating because it's kind of an unusual name, especially 24 years ago. I had never heard of it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was synchronicity was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
You didn't know you were using a family name.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of all that from a cosmic connection standpoint and all that. But yeah, it was very interesting to find that when I finally did find my biological siblings, that my oldest sister had named her son Brooks.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Wild.
That was a really good choice, Karen. Good choice of a name. I know you're listening. She's my fan. She's my biggest fan.
That's awesome.
Anyway, that's Kyle's birth sister, by the way. And she sends me texts about the podcast and the things that she's learning. And she doesn't even have an adopted child, but she's so sweet to always comment and tell me. But anyway, we love you, Karen. So let's move into like this whole, like that was our intro into the world. And we had 3 beautiful biological boys. We really know boy parenting, right? Pretty well, as best you can know any kind of parenting. They're all totally different, even though they have both of our DNA. They're totally different and so interesting. And then everybody who's been listening for a while, if you haven't, you know that in 2015, we welcomed 2 little girls. 2015 and 16 welcomed 2 little girls into our home that ended up becoming our family, our children, our daughters in 2018. So we have this interesting dynamic in our family that we are a perspective that you and I get to see, where we are we are launching children into the world. 2 got married last year.
Yeah.
At the same time, we are welcoming in children into our lives. So we have it's a really cool dynamic and a great opportunity for growth and learning on our part.
I've always said it was like a really cool Las Vegas nightclub, where they got the red rope and the bouncer in the front, big old long line, and it's 1 in, 1 out, right? And so we let 2 out and
2
they
came
let 2 in.
I'm not sure. I don't know about that. Okay, Kyle. Anyway, so that's a unique perspective. And so one of the things that I would say has been a big, if we were going to title this podcast, like the struggles of parenting on our marriage and then the blessings or something like that, one of the things has been grief. So we're ushering out, there's this grieving process that we've been going through, you and I. Maybe it's stronger in me at times and stronger in you at times, probably stronger in me a lot, but I'm ushering out 2 of my firstborn babies, and I'm bringing in, so I've been grieving things like, letting kids go is hard. And you and I have had a lot of conversations about what that looks like. What does that look like to our kids are making their own way in the world. And then we also have this component of grief of the way we thought. I don't think you and I really knew what we were exactly getting into when we took the foster care course and when we said yes. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. I just don't think we did.
Yeah, I don't know that you can. Yeah, maybe somebody somewhere knew exactly what they were getting into, but I don't know. It's one of those experience-based things. I think you can't. I definitely couldn't have forecasted all of the, scenarios, emotions, complexities, struggles. I couldn't have anticipated.
Well, grief sometimes, and I say grief, and I think people hear that as a negative thing because it often goes with death, right? But grief is just a process of a life, moving from a place of loss or something different than you thought to a place of acceptance. And I think grief sometimes can pull marriages apart. I know I've witnessed that in my life. People that I love, and they've grieved terrible things, and instead of pulling closer together, it kind of pulled apart.
Yeah.
Do you see grief as something that we've had to walk through? I know we've had to walk through it with the death of my father and my mother, but in parenting.
Yeah, sure. I definitely, I can remember many nights, when Brooks decided he was going to Haiti, and then Kaysen, leaving to go off to college. I can remember nights of you, crying yourself to sleep, and I think for me, I think the grief, because especially with boys, and ours have, thank goodness for us, they've done a good job at launching. Maybe sometimes better than
I wish they would.
You wish they would. You wish it would have been a little more hard for them to launch. But I think that's the goal. The goal is well-adjusted, imperfect people that are taking a next step, whatever that next step is. And I think for me, the main grieving, and now I'm going through it probably again with Carter, who's our 18-year-old who will graduate this year, is just going, man, did I spend enough time? Did I do enough with them? Did I get enough individual time with them? So for me, with all the other things that I try to balance, work and music and everything else, I definitely, because I put a lot on my plate, And so I definitely can feel like my grieving is over whether I did enough, whether I spent enough time.
Yeah.
Not as much that they're leaving, though I'll miss them. You know, like when Carter goes, it's just going to be me and 3 women.
Yeah.
God help me.
You do great.
One
great.
pre/menopausal and 2
pubescent. Is that
that
the
are
word?
crazy.
They're going to be
So,
at some point. I don't know.
so anyway,
Yeah.
so I will miss having Carter around the house, just because sometimes we can look at each other and go,
I understand. Yeah.
there's some camaraderie there. But yeah, I think the grief for me on kids leaving has been more of a question of, have I done everything I wish I would have done with them? Yeah. And I completely agree with you that a lot of marriages are affected negatively by grief when you don't know what it is, because sometimes you don't know why. You know, you don't know what it is. It can be real sneaky. And so I think a lot of marriages, that I'm quite sure that's a big.
Yeah. And I want to, that's kind of where I want to lead with this, because like the grief is what's happening, but all these other like symptoms of that are the things that get really, really tricky. And you kind of already mentioned one about just, you started off with this about feeling our feelings and having the space to do that. But before I do that, I want to go back. You know, the grieving is like we talked about, is letting our kids go, accepting accepting who they are instead of who we thought they were going to be, or who we thought we wanted them to be,
or who we needed them
to be. Yeah, who we needed them to be. That's hard. But then also, you know, bringing our girls in, there's been a grieving there, not in a negative way, although I know that sounds like that, but in a way of like what like I said, we didn't know what we were doing really, and like moving into something and recognizing what this really is, what this really means.
Sure.
You know, for example, me feeling like I think I had this idealistic feeling that, well, once I just become their mother, right?
Yeah.
And that's true, but I cannot replace their biological mother. And that's easier for me to say now than it was, you know, even a year ago, because I thought I needed to replace their biological mother, but I don't. And that's something that I think all of these really complex feelings, maybe they're primarily with me, but what's one thing that's been really hard for us, is when I express these feelings and emote these big emotions, you get really uncomfortable with that. You get really uncomfortable with me being scared, with me expressing fears and frustrations or anger or sadness or disappointment or regrets, like all of these things that are very natural for foster and adoptive parents to go through, that are all part of what I would refer to as a grieving process, coming to an acceptance of who we are in these kids' lives, makes you really uncomfortable. And I don't think that you're abnormal. Like, I think that this is something that's, as the leader of families, men are, you know, that's your job to protect and to take care of, right? One of your jobs. And so how does that feel when those things were showing up? And what have you, we've navigated this messily, if that's a word. It's muddy.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Wow.
Wait. So the bottom line is,
what's the question?
The bottom line is, I've been angry at you, frustrated, felt shame and different feelings from what it felt like coming from you. I know it wasn't exactly coming from you.
Yeah.
Because what I perceive is that you wanted to fix me, which is a great mirror, because I often want to fix my children. So I don't like being fixed, Kyle Hutton. So what have we?
Fixed.
Yeah.
I think it was yesterday. I was saying something to you, and you were like, "I didn't ask for any input," and my response was,
"No, it was unsolicited advice." I did not.
"We can do that." I'm gonna remember
that. You
that.
were giving me some advice,
some unsolicited advice. I was trying to fix you.
Yes. And I just simply said I didn't request it.
I get it. And I didn't know we could do that. So next time you're telling me how to do something, I'm going to point out that new rule.
Which is what?
Took me 28 years to learn about.
Which is what?
I didn't ask for any advice.
Yes.
Yeah.
On the other side of that, preemptively, we could just remember that unless we're being asked. Okay. Derailed.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So yes. And that's a long, like we could go into a lot of detail about that, about what maybe I've learned about myself and how I do that. I think number one, there is the fairly simple, somewhat stereotypical answer, and I'm not saying it's not true, of guys just want to fix stuff. Okay? So whatever level of that is true.
That is stereotypical because I am a female and I want to fix stuff too.
So
I just don't want to be fixed.
So now, as you know, I started doing my internal, work, my exploration, my family of origin type work, or just trying to understand myself, because I can be a very interesting case study at times of how I interact with the world. And as I started learning some things about the trauma that exist for children that are removed from their biological element, regardless of age, cognitive ability, regardless of the scenario. Was it a good situation, a bad situation, a rich situation, poor situation, abusive, not, like all of that. But just the effect when somebody is removed from their biological connection. And then as I started to ponder that there actually was something to that may have affected me in some way, shape, or form, and the lenses that I see the world through. Add that to actually connecting with my siblings. Both of my birth parents had passed away prior to me searching for them, but I did meet siblings, and Karen, and we're in contact with Karen, and then I've got two other brothers and another sister that we're in contact with. And going back to that connection with Brooks when he was first born, it's hard to relate to a baby and necessarily get what your similarities are. But as soon as I met my adult siblings, there were similarities there, uncanny type things that relayed to me that obviously, DNA
matters,
does exist. It does play a part, and there is a connection there. But going back to me doing kind of my homework and beginning to learn about myself, as I ponder the circumstances of my birth and what was going on around me, even in utero, and if you want more of the story, you and I did a couple of episodes way back where we talked about that. But it was not a calm deal. It was a product of an affair between two families that were really good friends and in close, their lives were in close proximity of each other. And so, and it was rocky, it was rocky for my birth mother and her husband, and then the other family that was involved. And when I think about some of the things that I probably experienced, just stress hormones from my mother based on what she was going through, things that I heard and experienced, even in utero, I believe that contributed to what sometimes we would just brush off as guys just want to fix things. I don't like conflict.
There you go.
And
okay.
I don't like big emotions. So
Right.
guess who I married?
Big
I
emotions.
married big emotions.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a first knee-jerk reaction for me whenever there's a really big emotion is, I mean, quite honestly, it scares the shit out of me. So
now we have to put it explicit on this podcast.
You can. I think that word's okay.
Kidding.
I just can't say beep and beep.
Okay. No. So it scares you. So when I start,
I don't know that it's not a conscious scared.
Yeah.
It's a the fight or flight thing. It's a
panic.
Yeah. I don't really know how to describe it other than it is a alert
that something is wrong.
Like fix this.
Yes.
Shut this down.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's very difficult for me to just sit back and watch the fireworks.
Yeah. That was a really long explanation, but necessary. No, it was necessary because what you're saying and whether we were adopted or whatever the reason is, there are reasons that we are uncomfortable with certain emotions or big emotions.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
And actually it's actually in those emotions that we find, that's where we can move past this fear that we have of them, is just by moving through them.
Right. Right. Well, and going back to the man thing, I absolutely was raised that, you don't sit around and cry about something. You move through it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you man up and
Yeah.
you do what you need to do. And there's absolute times for that,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, but not when your wife
times
is struggling.
when your wife's bawling her eyes out or ready to, jump off the roof.
And I just want to say, it's a really kind way that you always try to do that. Like you are the one that's like, okay, let's think of 5 things we're grateful for. Like that makes me want to chop your head off. Like I don't want to think of 5 things that I'm grateful for.
That's
in
all
the
my
middle.
sales trait. Like all the power of positive
understand.
thinking and all the good things that help me in the corporate world just, do not help me. Well,
Yes.
hey, this is a good one. Things that help in the boardroom do not help in the bedroom.
Ooh, that's good. That's probably going to be a song. Y'all be on the lookout. I remember telling my therapist one time that how it frustrates me when you want me to think of things that are thankful. And what it was doing, and this is not beat Kyle up because Kyle is a wonderful person and the reason that we're having this conversation is because we wouldn't be having this conversation in front of all these people if we hadn't had a million of these conversations along the way.
Oh yeah.
And so, but you are very optimistic. You try to find the good to avoid the pain sometimes. And for you, I remember what Vicki told me when I told her this and how I feel when you say it. I feel shame. I feel like there's something wrong with me. Why can't I do what he does? And she said, well, that may work for Kyle. Right? It may work for Kyle, but it doesn't mean it needs to work for you. And so anyway, I think that's been one of the big things. And it's interesting that it's the thing that, we don't want to be fixed. I think our marriages are actually like mirrors to our parents. It's just another relationship. Yeah. Our kids are just another relationship. Our marriages are just another relationship. Yeah. And so like in this relationship, I don't want to be fixed. And yet I'll turn around and try to fix my daughters or my sons.
Or your husband.
Or my husband, right. You don't want to be fixed, but yet I do the same thing.
Yeah.
And so being open to these conversations is super important, and they don't always look pretty in the beginning, right?
Sure.
I mean, they usually look really ugly.
Yeah.
And then they take some time for us to work through them and get through. But I think that just having these conversations, instead of me always thinking I needed to do it the way that you were doing it, it just wasn't working for me. And when I finally got permission to be like, oh, that's how he's doing it, but that's not how I need to do it. And I need to teach Kyle what I need. And I remember we were in the car driving maybe to family camp or something. think we've had this conversation a lot, so it may have been a bunch of different times, but you learned something about that it was, and I remember you saying, that's all? Do you know what I'm talking about? Around this, me expressing my feelings, whether they made you uncomfortable or not. What do you do now? Just forget it. What do you do now that you didn't know or didn't think how to do before?
What I try to do is catch that internal, oh man, something's going wrong here, and I need to not be in this situation.
Okay.
Is catch it and then take a deep breath and just listen.
Oh, that's it.
And that's it.
Yeah. You just listen.
Yeah.
And it's I remember when you got that, you were like, that's all? And I was like, yes.
It's hard. And it's hard to do. I mean, it's hard to do.
But it works.
It's better than the other things I've tried.
Yeah. And I remember a specific time where I was expressing some really dark things.
Yeah.
Some really things that I probably won't ever share with anyone else. And you were able to listen in that. And it was profound.
Yeah.
Because I was able to express it. And then it was I was so free, and I didn't feel any shame for feeling it because you just listened. And you may have said something like, I understand.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Well, it's not, I've experienced this in other areas of my life too. And it's not a cliche that when you bring something out into the light that it loses a lot of its power. You know what I mean? So
yeah, but if I'm trying to fight to get it,
yeah, the need to be able to have a safe place to talk. I totally get that, and I am much more aware now of the internal dialogue that goes on whenever that starts to happen around me, and I'm more comfortable now, and probably will be more comfortable, 5 years from now than I am.
Good. When our girls hit the teenage years.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Whew, that's going to be good.
Yeah.
That's
so
good.
And I think going back to the whole thought process of those things that are challenges to marriage, I think the thing about parenting is that it just provides this continuous backdrop of circumstances and events and conversations that we at times have, we've gotten better because we've done something the right way. And then there are times where, I've not listened correctly, or I've judged you for how you're feeling, or vice versa. And we do it the wrong way, and then we learn from that. So
yeah. If there really is a right or wrong way.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like staying at the table is the right answer, right?
Yeah.
So whether we, go about it the right way, or whether we go about it the more enlightened way, or whether
I don't like right and wrong.
Yeah. Whether we're running our old tapes.
Yeah.
But parenting has definitely provided plenty of opportunities for us to work out our issues.
I would say one of the greatest gifts that you've been learning to give me is what we just said, is just being able to just be there for me in my big emotions, because that's never been I've never had that in my life. When I felt things, they were minimized and deflected and redirected, and so it is interesting. I do believe that God, that we continually invite into our lives things, people, that help us heal. And so you've helped me in that way, because I've had to fight, but you were a safe place to fight back. Whereas at home, it wasn't a safe place to keep expressing my feelings. Even though you may not have received them for a while, you did learn. And I also learned to fight back, to fight for what I needed.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
I'm since I have the notes, I'm just going to keep rolling.
Yeah.
All right.
Do.
I mean, you might have things you want to say, so you can interject, but, let's see, allowing each other their feelings and learning to be with them instead of fixing them. Check that one off. We just did that, didn't we?
Yes. And I imagine
it will keep happening, right?
We will keep practicing that.
Let's see. This is a big one. Discipline differences. I mean, that's been a hard one for us.
Yeah, for sure.
You and I were raised similarly in that, I mean, I would just call it old school.
Yeah.
Like, if you're from a religious background, they call it spare the rod and spoil the child, which I don't think that scripture was interpreted correctly, but we won't go in there on that one. But you and I were raised differently. I mean, we were raised similarly.
Yeah.
And then yet when I wouldn't say just when the girls enter the picture, but years ago when I started going to therapy, kind of some new things started showing up for us. New ways of seeing discipline and correction. And that's been something we've had to maneuver. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it started showing up for me with the girls.
Okay.
Obviously, there's probably for everybody when you first have kids, and so with my bio kids, I think there were probably things that I thought, like everybody does. Well, I'll never do that to my kids, or I'll never, you know what I'm saying? Like whatever those things were that produce negative experiences in childhood, you kind of have your eye on those, and maybe even to a fault sometimes of swinging to the other end of the fence. So, like if you're really, if you really felt under the thumb, then maybe you become really permissive or whatever. But so I remember thinking when we had our boys that there were certain things, that I wanted to do, and then there were certain things I didn't want to do that were in my home when I was brought up. But the total paradigm shift didn't come until we got the girls and I started learning about trauma. And I still struggle and at times fail in being able to, quite frankly, buy in to some of the methodologies. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just, probably going to get all kinds of hate mail from your
no, because
TBRI toting listeners. But point being, it can be so in contrast to the way I was brought up, and yet I completely understand the logic behind why we do things in a trauma-informed fashion. But you watch me. I mean, you watch me struggle with that, because there's times when I just want the parent-child relationship to have the level of respect in it that when you need something to stop, it can stop. And man, that is just not, and my dad knew how to make us stop talking in church. He knew how to do a lot of things, and that can, I'm not saying that produces everything that we want it to produce as parents. There are times that I struggle being willing to forego relationship and whatever for whatever the behavior is to just stop.
Yeah. We want to power over something.
Yeah.
Instead of feeling powerless.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's been a struggle for me, and absolutely there are times when whether it's how I'm responding to you or how you're responding to me in my struggle, that elevates the conflict to, like, because we can start with it being a conflict between me and one of the girls, and then it goes DEFCON 4 whenever you hop in and
yeah.
Oh
yeah, now you're getting real, Kyle. Yeah, for sure. This is hard because it's so easy to look at the other parent when they're in the middle of their dysregulation and trying to experience that, power, control, because we feel inadequate in some way or like powerless. And then it's super easy to be, what do they call that? The armchair quarterback over here with the book. Oh, nope. You know, that's, nope.
Get down on their level, make eye contact.
Yes.
I'm like, I'm about to drop kick this kid.
Yes. And you know what, Kyle? I don't think we're going to get hate mail, because I had a beautiful conversation with a lady yesterday who spoke regularly on the phone to Karen Purvis herself, friends. And she expressed similar things of just feeling like there are times that we feel like this isn't working.
Sure.
This isn't working.
Yeah.
And I think the truth is that we only control I only control me, you only control you. We do not control any other human being, even when they are living in our home.
Yeah.
And to be in charge of one person is enough.
Yeah.
But when we can when we can just be okay with, like, this is the best I got, and always trying to get better, right? But this is the best that I have. I'm giving it. It's helpful.
Yeah. You know, one thing that I was just thinking as you were saying that is that this parenting approach and working with kids from hard places definitely has, like, it invites me to a level of patience that it challenges me all the time, because I'm just not good at that. You know, I'm not good at the patience part. When I take the time to remember that my reaction to our little girls matters, because I don't know. First off, it just matters. It matters how you treat other human beings, right? I mean, that's the highest level of morality on that deal. And I don't know everything that they experienced before they got to us, you know, especially the one that we didn't get until she was, 3.5, almost 4. I don't know. We do know some of what they experienced, and so I know that how I respond to them is very important, because of the triggers that are there for them that send them to a place that's not a place I want to be a part of sending them, right? So I mean, it's just a challenge. It's a challenge, and it requires even another level of patience and intentionality than learning to stop and just listen to you and let you do your thing. You know,
and
what I mean?
It requires humility, which I'll say, you do a great job of that, because even when you do lose your patience, come from a place of wanting to power over at times or whatever, you quickly humble yourself and seek forgiveness. And I mean, that's something that I wasn't taught by example. I don't remember that from my parents. And maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but I was always the one left feeling like it was all my fault. And and my parents did the best. I love my parents, but they did the best they could, and I just never felt that. And I know that you and I have learned to make repairs, to repair, and
for sure.
And that takes humility, because you have to say, sometimes I say to Carter, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I don't know what I'm doing. He's 18, and I can say that. And sometimes I need to say that to the girls. You're right. That was not nice.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. And I think it just invites that vocabulary into their lives, and that way of thinking into their lives.
Sure.
So, the discipline thing's been a navigation.
Ongoing,
right?
Ongoing.
Yeah. Let's just talk about some of the things, because those are biggies. Recognizing feelings, recognizing our own, the differences in not just how we were disciplined, but the attachments that we both had to our with our parents, and how, I remember when we first got married. This was very telling, and I did not recognize it until I started learning about attachment. But you would hug me, and what would I do?
You would be hugged.
I would be hugged, right? I would just kind of curl into like a fetal position and just allow you to hug me.
Yeah.
And what I know now about myself is that's all about my attachment,
Sure.
and the vulnerability that it takes to do this. It was too much for me at that time. And you would take my arms and put them around you, and you taught me that it was safe to give and not just receive. And so, like, understanding where you and I both came from in terms of an attachment, and being sensitive to one another about that. It's gonna make me cry. Thank you for doing that for me.
You're welcome.
Because that's been a long journey for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, sure.
It's hard sometimes, right?
Yeah. I mean, yes, it is. And I think, it is.
Do you want to talk about the push-pull dynamic that sometimes shows up with me? Or not?
I mean, you'd have to elaborate a little bit.
Well, just I feel myself at times, and it has gotten so much better through my own healing work, but just that, pull you in, push you away. For example, when you go to Steamboat each year, Kyle is a singer-songwriter, and he's for, I don't know, the past 10 years or so, you've gone to a music festival in Steamboat where he's gone longer than you're normally gone, 6 or 7 nights. And you're really busy during that time. You're doing a lot of stuff with a lot of people. It's a very, exciting time. I know you're working really hard, but the push-pull that I'm talking about and concerning my attachment is when you're busy and I don't hear from you for a long time. I start to get fearful.
Sure.
And it's not anything that I'm like, okay, Kyle's doing something bad or whatever. It's just more of like feeling like you've forgotten about me, or feeling like I don't captivate you, or all of these things are not true.
Right.
But in my mind, I can make that up. And what I do, instead of calling you, instead of opening up my arms and putting them around you, to use that example again, I will push you away.
Sure.
So instead of curling in fetal position, even, I'm going to actually push you away, which might look like me not answering the phone when you call, or me being short with you when you call. And so I know that's just that's just one example of the way you've had to be sensitive to an insecure attachment and help me form. And so you want to talk about what, like, just this year, what we did something different. We talked about being intentional. I didn't prep Kyle at all for this.
No, that's all right. I mean,
but about connecting intentionally, and just you recognizing that that's what I do.
Yeah.
Me being honest and being, vulnerable about that's what I do.
Yeah.
And then us setting up a new plan.
Yeah. I mean, the bottom line is, and what I'm like realizing just even as we're having this conversation is, the same thing that I do with you and that you do with me in acknowledging whether it's attachment style, past traumas, whatever, right? All of it's tied together. But when we're thinking in that space, then it becomes how can I facilitate better attachment, right? Whether it's me with you or the girls or our biological boys or whatever. and the exercise, you and I, and we've had 28 years to do this. You know what I mean? Like, we've been navigating each other's crap for a long time, right?
Gaps.
Challenges, yeah, whatever you want to call it. And now who's being optimistic? This time around in Steamboat, one of the things, obviously, in the world of the music business, one of the things that and has been a go-to to me for me in ways of helping me kind of regulate how I feel has been alcohol, and that obviously the music business and alcohol go hand in hand, and quite frankly, the music festival that I get to go participate in is one of the few times that there's, I don't know, 60 musicians who never get to see each other, hanging out, playing music, and access to whatever you want. I mean, you're in Colorado, and all the alcohol companies are there, so you pretty much can have access to whatever you want. So, like one of the things that is, and I'm not proud to say this, but one of the things that is a difficult thing for me to do, but recognizing your trauma from having an alcoholic father, and then just personal history with me about my switch getting flipped and me drinking too much, and whatever, all the stuff that comes along with that, is me going, hey, I know this is going to make you feel better. So without you even saying anything about it, me coming to you and going, hey, I'm going to be busy, but let's, I'm going to FaceTime you and the girls every day. I'm going to make it a point for us to talk every day. I'm not going to drink. I'm just going to purposely, instead of going in saying, hey, I'm going to go have fun, and I know I'm going to drink, and I know I'm going to whatever, I'm just going to go in and say that I'm not, right? And again, not because, number one, that's easy for me, or number two, I'm some great person. That's me intentionally trying to stay connected to you. And when I think about that in the context of our kids, I need to challenge myself to find ways to be more intentionally connecting with them, sometimes by taking away things that could trigger some of their past hurts. You know what I mean?
Like, no.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to think about that on the girl side of it. It's easy for me with you because I know you so well. So yeah.
Well, I think what you
but recognizing things that affect your attachment style, your ability to attach,
to feel safe in a relationship,
being proactive on things that I can do, like I'm going to reach out this, at these times, or we're going to connect in these ways, and then also honoring some of the things that trigger fear in you, and saying, well, I can just take that off the table.
Yeah. It's definitely alcohol triggers fear in me. People getting loud and out of control, that triggers a lot of fear in me. And even though I know I've been to Steamboat with you several times. I know how hard you're working and how you're in, but when you're so busy and I don't hear from you for a while, I can make up all kinds of stories.
Sure. Yeah.
And so that was really a beautiful gift you gave me this year, and you've done it before, but to say, so that I just know, hey, alcohol wasn't on the table for Kyle, so I know that's not what he's doing.
Yep.
And then just also that intentional time. And I noticed myself this year, I made it about 3 days in, and I was doing really well. And then all of a sudden there was a trigger, and I felt myself pulling away. But the work is when you feel yourself doing that, is to say it.
Yeah.
Because in absence of saying it, I try to make you recognize it by being manipulative and controlling and all that. It's not what I want. but just saying it to you. And I think that's important. I think that is, this podcast today is about what our children are teaching us. I mean, this is one thing. They've definitely shown me the insecure attachment that I had, and how you have shown me a secure attachment and given me that secure attachment. What are you smiling at?
I mean, how many times have I been in like a foster care training, or, in a book, or, whatever, and reading it about kids and go, wait a minute.
That's me.
This isn't about my kids. This is about me.
It is.
So it's like, beware learning this stuff to use on your kids, because it does.
Yeah.
But
that's
it's
what
great.
it's supposed to do.
I know, it's great.
That's what it's supposed to do. So, if I were going to wrap this little episode up in a nice, neat box, which always feels nice to do, I would say that this is just like a smidge of the stuff, right? I mean, we'd have to get really real.
Yeah.
I mean, we might not want to do that with everybody listening, but I think that you and I, while we've done a lot of things that we would really like a do-over on, there's some things we've done right, and I will give you some credit because you said early on, even to my resistance, we're gonna have date night.
Yeah.
We're going to have a date night, and it's a non-negotiable. And there's been a few things in our life that you've said, this is a non-negotiable. Mm-hmm. And that was one of them. And you've held to that. And you have paved the way for that.
Nightly sex.
Yeah. Just kidding. Don't put that expectation on any of these women.
I was just seeing if I could get that one in there.
That's an important thing. I mean, it is true. The nightly thing is not. But
true.
if there's not sex happening, there's probably some things that need to be talked about and need to be addressed.
Yeah, I just had to lighten the moment.
I think that is a. Well, I mean, you brought it up, so I think that is a symptom of something else. But I believe.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not having any physical connection, then,
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and there's times, let's be honest. I mean, there's times, I wrote a great song about it, but there's times where, I mean, there's going to be times where if you've been married for a long time, you're going to feel more like indentured roommates. Like, I got to do dishes, I got to clean, I got to do this, I got to do that, and then I got to get up tomorrow morning and I got to go do it all again.
It's exhausting.
And there can be times when it feels like there's not an element to the relationship that's any different than any other relationship. And I think being able to recognize that and go, hey, one of the foundational things about our relationship when we got together was that we enjoyed each other and loved each other in a friendship way and a romantic way. And if it ever leans completely to one side without the other, then there's probably something out of whack.
I kind of think of it as it being a symptom of something deeper. You know what I mean? Like if you have I don't want to use the word rash because that can be kind of weird. We're like, oh, sex. But I want to use just like it's like an outward sign that there's something that needs to be dealt with. Because I think that it's an expression of intimacy, right? Yeah. So if there's a lack of expression of the intimacy, then there's an intimacy issue.
Yeah.
And that needs to be, and we won't dive into that in this episode. We don't have time. I know we're running out of time. But I think that's important to look at. I don't think it needs to be something, I don't think you fix it with sex. I think you fix it.
That's debatable.
Okay.
Kidding.
I hear you. So yeah.
How do you land this?
How do I land this plane? Well, I think that's important. I think that's an important thing to talk about. Well, I'd like to land it with a song that you wrote, and it kind of goes back to where we started with this whole grieving thing. But recently you wrote a song called "Flowers in the Yard," and the song it is about grieving. Is the song about grieving? I mean, you wrote the song.
Yeah, it is. It is about grieving.
So, do you want to tell the story about that?
Well, I'll tell the short version, and then
Yeah,
why don't you put a link to the video in the show notes?
Oh, I forgot there's a video.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I think because of what's going on with our boys, you know, 2 of them got married. That's a whole nother, you know, they leave the house, but then they get married, and that's a whole nother level of letting go, right?
Whole nother level.
And then we've got Carter, who's leaving now, or who's leaving at the end of this senior year. And then we've got the 2 girls. So I've got the unique perspective of understanding some things about what's coming with these little girls. But it's stuff I learned from my bio kids, right?
Sure.
So a lot of the emotion, you know, the song is about the 2 little girls, right? And picking your flowers out in the yard, you know, and you like to see them in a pot, and they like to pull them off and mash them up.
I like flowers with roots.
Mash them up and make potions out of them and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And so, so that's what the song is about, real life experience. I'm not going to go into it. You can it's in the first verse of the song, and you can check that out. But I guess the grief, the grief is that tension between like even us as a couple, you know, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners, you can get lost in that parenting is all there is. Like it can be so overwhelming and have so many requirements that you can lose the intimacy side. You can lose the date night. You can't afford to go take one. Like all of that kind of stuff, right, can just go out the window because of the responsibility. Then throw in the special needs of kids that have been in the foster, adoptive world, and it can be a very daunting. It can be a very daunting thing. So there's the side of me that goes, man, all I want more than anything right now is to just take my wife to Mexico and like no kids, no, I need her in a swimsuit and an umbrella drink in my hand, right? So there can be that, right? But then there's the side of it that I've already experienced, and that is the side of it that I mentioned earlier. You know, man, did I give enough? Did I equip well enough? Did I speak into them enough? And those little things that you're going to miss, you know, those little things of them, you know, running up and smiling or running up and giving you a hug at the end of the day or grabbing your leg and saying they're not letting go until you wrestle, you know,
that happens every day at our house.
A lot. So knowing that those things are coming to an end. So I don't know. I think it's a very sacred meeting of wanting to be able to be alone and at peace with yourself or your significant other, and the love and the opportunities and the memories and everything else that you make with your kids. There's supposed to be a tug there between those two. And that's what I tried to capture. That's what I tried to capture in that song. And I think, I feel it when I sing it, and that's usually when I know if I said what I wanted to say or not.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful song.
Thank
it means
you.
a lot to me because it is our life right now. To me, it's also about being present. Like, even though things are hard sometimes, they're really beautiful.
Mm. Yeah.
They're really beautiful. And I love our life. And I love our family. And I love our boys who have taught me so much, and my girls who have taught me so much and continue to teach me so much. And I love you and your patience that you've given me, and your stick-to-itiveness, and your knowing that we're going to figure it all out. Like, that feels really safe and comforting to me. And so I hope that other people are experiencing that. And if they're not, that I hope that you know that it's possible. And it does take a lot of work. And, but I love what Marie Forleo says. If you don't know her, she's a entrepreneur, business coach, but she says everything is figure outable. And I think that it is. And so anyway, I hope that you were able to take something away. I hope that this podcast could be a conversation starter between you and your partner, and that you could maybe go have sushi and jot down some notes on your phone about all the things that you are learning from your children that apply to your marriage, and because it's really important. And some of you are single and you're working hard too, and you're working really hard, and I hope that you have a community, and if you don't, build one. It's important. So I love you all, and I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next week.
Mama's Way.